Alright, I'm gonna try to make this video as quick as possible. Alright, so why I personally feel that the Xbox brand was dead since the second half of the 360 per se, and why the Xbox brand in general has been doomed for quite a long time, unfortunately. So I feel like many gamers felt like that it started to decline after like the second half of the 360. Now, people can debate that or have their personal opinion on it. And I heard people say, "Oh, well, it started to die down ever since Don Matrick started mentioning the Xbox One and the DRM," which I will get to that in a few. But I don't think it's literally dead per se. But I think the trend from like 2010 to 2013, I think it created a different narrative that I guess the Xbox brand was kind of hoping for. Like for instance, the Connect, I believe it came around in around 2010. So Microsoft's like thing now was the Connect. They were heavily marketing the Connect as a future of the Xbox brand since the Wii was, I guess, doing so well at the time. But let's be real, the Wii was also a gimmick, a very fun gimmick at the time. But then as time went on, like it wasn't doing the same. So I guess the Xbox brand was trying to do the same thing, but without the controller aspect of the Wii. So I guess in this way they were trying to focus more. I guess excuse me, there's a name for it. Excuse me for the coughing, by the way. Um, it was a development resource shift towards. There was a name for it, motion control, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's motion control, but it was mostly for like casual gamers, and I guess the actual hardcore gamers that just want to sit down and game, they just felt ignored. And truth be told, they didn't really have much games to the Connect, regardless. So while the Connect did sell extremely well, but it didn't produce long-term hitting games, and all these other players, such as myself, saw it as a gimmick. Meanwhile, Sony and Nintendo was also doing the motion gaming, but I think Xbox leaned to it more than the two competitors. But I think that's when people started questioning about 2013, how it was the most worst disaster launch of Xbox history. And in a way, I have to agree. Yes, the way that they produced it, the way that it was like, there were so many wrong into it. Like, it was one of the worst things that they put out there. Like, for instance, there were people complaining about the Connect being mandatory into the console. Like, it's not optional, like it's part of the system now. Because they were still heavily relying that, like, oh, well, the Connect can do well. And then we realized that the Connect was just mostly spyware. So that's interesting. Meanwhile, it was $500 during launch price. Meanwhile, the PlayStation 4 was $400, so $100 less. And then the worst part was that it had always online DRM plan, and that was literally one of the worst ideas that they did. Always online? Absolutely not. Because if there was a power outage or a natural disaster, the first thing you're not going to be thinking about is, oh man, how am I going to play this Xbox game when there's a tornado hitting my house or something bad's going to happen? No, nobody's not going to focus on that. That is ridiculous. So always online was ridiculous. And I get people like, oh, we have the internet, we have the phone, why is that an issue? But in retro case, like, why do we need online all the time? Like that's just ridiculous. The other thing was the what was it? The restrictions on used games. Like the fact that it was an issue just to share a game was like also beyond unbelievable. I think they said something about that it has to be used once when it comes to sharing, and I really don't know what they were trying to get into that idea, but it was a disaster. Meanwhile, Sony did the most trolly commercial, was just like this is how you share your game to your friend, and you just pass it through a game, and that was it. So while I feel the PS4 was pro-consumer and gamer-focused at the time, which make Xbox look extremely out of touch, and then like I think they were trying really hard to make sure that these things would just stick there, and while it wasn't working. The other issue was the lack of exclusives, and it always felt like Halo, Gears, and Forza all the time. And then when they try to bring back the other games, such as oh my god, my stammer is terrible. The what was it, Crackdown? That waited like too long, and it was still incomplete. And then they started bringing new games, Sea of Thieves, which also didn't do well. It was just a disaster. And now we're getting to the point where like all these games, these so-called Xbox exclusives, are now on the PlayStation side, and now they literally have nothing. But I'll get to that in a minute as well. And then with the sales gap, like PlayStation was doing well in this case. I know people want to argue whether 360 was better in the sense of the two generation consoles ago. And in a way, yes, because the PS3 was a disaster, but in a way it did sell more compared to Xbox 360. But I still fully believe that the 360 was a lot better than the PS3. But which people can argue that it also had its issues, yes. Okay, so the other one is the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, right? So the PS4 definitely sold more compared to the Xbox One, and that's when it started to fall off. And then they started talking about, let's change the ecosystem of the console war, and they started implementing Xbox Game Pass and games on the PC and games on the cloud and buying studios like Bethesda and Activision, right? So that means the Xbox is now less focused on selling the most consoles and more selling the game service everywhere. So and now we're getting to the point that it's probably gonna die down. Me personally, how I feel about it, well, I really wasn't a big Xbox gamer. I never really had the Xbox One per se, but the best thing about it is I could play it onto Game Pass for cheap without needing the console itself. But I think they shot themselves in the foot with the whole trying to raise up the Game Pass. That's unfortunate. I know people might say, "Oh, well, you got Steam, this and that." Well, I mean, people just don't want to play on Steam, and that's fine. Me personally, I like Steam, so Steam's always been my bucket list, along with the PlayStation. But I'll talk about the PlayStation in another video because I need to heavily criticize on that. But in this particular case, Xbox did not die. Well, it seems like it is now, but it shifted from like a console brand to a gaming ecosystem. And if it's going to end up like the Sega Genesis, then you know what? Like at least it ran longer than the Sega Genesis, or at least the Sega. Yet, like that itself. But I think what upsets me the most is the fact that the fanboys did not want better. They kept damage controlling the console. They didn't want better. They didn't demand better, and you just kept everything the same. And then when you keep everything the same, that's when things start to fall apart. And here we are. Now we're getting to the point where it's now Nintendo, PlayStation, and Steam. And again, I don't want the Xbox brand to die. I mean, let's see how the other brand does it. But if it gets to the point where it's not going to succeed anytime, you can thank the bad marketing and I guess the fanboys that did not want better. Because it's a shame.